Greetings, Shiro Fujioka, aka
Voltage controller.
checking in with you guys for the first episode of Faders Up. I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of the gear that I used for this live set. I started out with the modular and the Digitone to handle the synthesis, and on the sampling side I have the Octatrack and the Digitack. What I'm going to do now is demystify this live session and reverse engineer the sonic building blocks that make up this live set. So we're going to get started with the modular. This is a 2-voice system, so we have an oscillator, clock divider, another oscillator, low pass filter. We have a modulation source. 2 channels are used for envelopes, 2 are used for LFOs, and we have the expander for that. Next to that we have 2 distings. I'm only using one of them for tap tempo delay. Next to that we have Pico effects. I'm not using that. And we have the passive low pass gate. Next to that we have the Optimix, and lastly we have the Mutant Brain MIDI to CV module, and that's going into the Digitone. So now we'll cross from the wrong side of the tracks to the other side and go to the digital version of synthesis on the Digitone. The thing I really like about the Digitone is when you really like kind of, you know, open up the lift up the hood and look and see what's going on underneath it. It's basically a modular. It's a 4-track modular in a little black box, and I really enjoy using it because the same style of patches that I do on the analog modular I can do on the Digitone, but I have the added benefits of saving the patches and you know, running, you know, I usually limit it to just 8 different sequences for a live set. This particular one I just used 5. And you know, so you have 4 tracks of 5, you know, modular complex synth patches, and this is similar to the way I approach my bigger modular system. I always break things down into 4 tracks, so jumping on the Digitone was like, you know, just was like jumping in familiar territory. The next thing I use on the Digitone is the Midi Sequencer. I sequence the analog modular with 2 tracks of MIDI from the Digitone, and I use the Mutant Brain to translate the MIDI to CV signal. So the Digitone is generating pitch and gate for the 2 oscillators in the analog modular, as well as generating a clock from the clock divider from the Mutant Brain to the tap tempo on the disting tap tempo delay. So that brings us to our next building block, but it's actually not a building block. This is actually the foundation of the live setup, which is the Octatrack handling clock for everything. And I have the Digitack hooked up to the inputs of the Octatrack. The Digitone is going out to the mixer, and the modular is also going out to the main mixer that's going into the recording interface. So let's get into how I'm using the Octatrack. So the Octatrack is used for sampling, of course. So I have on one of the tracks, I have a drum loop. Another track, I'll have like a vinyl sample chop. 2 tracks will be audio tags. You know, I might have another track with another like acapella if I'm doing a remix, and maybe more vinyl chops. And then the last 2 tracks are always a through track for the Digitack. And then track 8 is master out with delay effects and either a compressor or sometimes an EQ. So the next thing I want to talk about with the Octatrack, of course, is the infamous Crossfader, which I absolutely love. Given that my former attribute was DJ Shiro, I was a full-fledged turntablist from Music Fiends and 1200 Hobos, like we were about that scratch life. So I'm very familiar with the fader, and I really love using it with samples. So, you know, it's familiar territory once again, you know, mangling sound and manipulating it with the fader. So I use the fader quite a lot, maybe sometimes a little too much. It's like I'm stuttering or I have Tourette's, so bear with me and say a prayer. So lastly, to round this out, we have the Digitack, and the Digitack is used for one-shot drum samples just as a way to like fatten up the drum loop, or sometimes to have alternative loops to mix and match, because I really like having the option of being able to mix and match on the fly all these sonic building blocks. So like I might originally compose them to be like one cohesive song, you know, and it'll go from sequence to sequence or song to song. But also, like, if I just feel like improving, you know, I could drop everything down to a beat, mix and match beats, mix and match bass lines or patches or whatever, and just explore. So thanks for tuning in to the first episode of Faders Up. This is Shiro Fujioka, aka Voltage Controller. Peace and love. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Voltage control. Voltage control.
That's what you wanna do. Hit with more shit that make you feel brand new.
This is the year that I come and I just devastate.
Voltage control. This is Los Angeles.